Welcome back to Pelangi 21. Today I will show you a 2020 American biographical drama film directed by Reynaldo Marcus Green, titled Joe Bell. The film stars Mark Wahlberg, Reed Miller, and Connie Britton. In May 2013, Oregon mill worker Joe Bell is walking through Idaho with his 15-year-old son Jaden. They arrive in Twin Falls, and Joe gives a speech about tolerance and the harmful effects of bullying in high schools. Later, Jaden criticizes Joe's speech about understanding in the family as bullshit. Jaden remembers how difficult it was for Joe to understand and accept him. 9 months prior, Jaden revealed to his parents that he is being bullied at school because he is gay. Joe is accepting, although still often uncomfortable. He supports Jaden when he joins the cheerleading squad but asks him to practice in the backyard, worried that their neighbors will pass judgment. Along the way, they stop at a diner where the news on TV mentions same-sex marriage. When two patrons make a disparaging remark, Joe tells them about his mission, to walk across America in order to raise awareness against homophobic bullying, before leaving hastily. Jaden tells his father that men like that won't change and that bullying starts with their children, who need to be educated properly about its effects. Jaden reminds him of what he had told him, that Jaden must be able to defend himself and fight people who bother him. But Joe didn't do that, he chose to walk away. Jaden angrily mentions that his father is a liar. Back in 2012, Jaden attends a Halloween party and meets Chance, a closeted homosexual. They share a kiss and begin secretly dating. At a school football game, Jaden is heckled by several people in the crowd for being a cheerleader, and his parents get up and leave in embarrassment. Later, he is bullied on social media, but is comforted by his younger brother Joseph. Chance then ends their relationship, scared that his parents will find out. Back on the road, Jaden feels that his father always hated him when he was a cheerleader. Because Joe only came to one game and left. Joe tells Jaden he was supportive of his cheerleading despite never showing it, and the two reenact Jaden's old routine in the rain after they set up camp for the night. Joe and Jaden arrive in Salt Lake City, Utah. They check into a motel and Joe goes to a gay bar, where he engages with some locals and tells them his son's story. When asked why he didn't bring him, Joe tells them that his son is dead. Joe has been walking alone the whole time. Jaden's presence was all in his mind. When he returns to the motel, he no longer sees Jaden. Jaden's mom Lola and Joseph visit Joe on the road. When Joe is later spotted by some locals and takes photographs with them, Lola questions if he is walking for Jaden or for the fame. Later, Lola shows Joe a note that was left on Jaden's grave, an apology written by one of the boys who had bullied him. Joe reacts angrily and takes it out on Joseph, leaving both him and Lola upset and fearful. Back home, Lola calls Joe and tells him she found an essay Jaden had written detailing his experiences of bullying and expressing his desire to commit suicide. Back in February 2013, Jaden is assaulted in the school locker room by a group of jocks. Joe and Lola meet with the school principal who advises Jaden transfers schools or attends therapy. Jaden tearfully refuses, claiming he is not the one who needs help. The bullying continues, particularly on social media. One morning, Lola finds a suicide note in Jaden's bedroom as a jogger discovers Jaden's body, having hanged himself in a nearby park. Lola rushes to the scene to find Jaden has already died. Days later, Joe, who has spiraled into a deep depression, gets into his car with a gun, but Joseph stops him. Joe then decides to walk from Idaho to New York City, where Jaden always wanted to live. Joe calls Lola from the road and tells her he cannot walk any further, but she convinces him to keep going for Jaden. Joe makes the decision to continue his journey. He continues to give speeches and lectures. During his journey, he also meets kind people who help him with food. Days later, a local sheriff, Gary, stops Joe as he walks the side of the highway. He buys Joe a hot meal, and holds a meeting so that Joe can give a lecture at the local high school. Gary reveals his son William is also gay. He tells Joe that he has never considered that William has ever wanted to take his own life, but he is afraid that he was too harsh on his son. Joe urges him to tell William that it is okay to be who he is, something he never told Jaden and regrets, knowing he will have to live with that for the rest of his life. Joe gives a talk at the local high school, and sees Jaden again, sitting there smiling at him. Joe continues walking with Jaden again. He apologizes and tells Jaden that he always loved him, and Jaden says he knows. Joe then calls Lola and apologizes to her also, and thanks her for putting up with him. He promises to be better about staying in touch on the road. In October 2013, Gary receives a call about a traffic accident in Colorado and arrives at the scene where a semi-truck driver had fallen asleep and hit a pedestrian, killing him instantly. The victim is revealed to be Joe. The film ends with Joe and Jaden meeting in a field, walking together towards the sunlight. Based on a true story, Joe Bell tells the story of a gay teen Jaden, who ends his life after he is bullied by his friends. This story is very relevant in all of our lives, because most teenagers are bullied, just because they are different from most people. People who bully don't realize what they are doing can be bad for that person. It is shown how one of the students feels sorry after Jaden's death, and leaves an apology letter on his grave. It is true what Joe said, nothing could change the harsh reality that Jaden was gone. Joe has every right to be angry about what they did, but it won't bring Jaden back. One thing he can do is raise awareness about tolerance and the dangers of bullying out of respect for his son. What Joe does is a journey towards healing, not only for the loss of his son, but also for the regret he has. Even though Joe loves Jaden, but he can't express what's on his mind. Despite Joe's imperfections as a father, Joe begins to realize his mistakes all along and he tries to change. When he meets Gary, he tries to be honest about his feelings. How he felt sorry for never supporting and defending Jaden when he lived, and trying to convince Gary not to do the same mistake as him. This film takes its point of view from Joe. What Joe felt and did to what lessons he learned during his journey. From a father who does not care, rude and inattentive, to a father figure who can understand his son. Joe's acknowledgement of his own failure, which is conveyed through dialogue with Jaden, is very touching and becomes an important plot in the film. What is commendable is the performance of Reed Miller and Mark Wahlberg. Every emotion and expression conveyed by them is so beautiful. I love the chemistry between Joe and Jaden, which is built on a bit of comedy and connects to their past. The two of them are indeed very opposite, but they try to understand each other during their journey. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification.